Alrighty, time for a little bit of a fleet update. In my last update with the MR2, we had identified that there was an issue with the suspension on this car where the bolt on the top of the strut was loose here on the driver's side, causing that wheel to slide in and out under load. So we cinched that down, and when I went and took it to get the final alignment, they took care of that. And I have not had a chance to really drive this car since, because this MR2 has developed a new problem, which would also explain why it's still sitting here. So the alignment is done, but the problem that's now going on is that something is going on with the engine. I was having a problem with a no start issue. It would turn over and run for a minute and then cut off. With sometimes load, sometimes no load. And I had identified that there was a problem with a distributor cap, which has been rectified. I'll throw some photos of it in here though. But the distributor cap had melted. There was a gap where the screws that came in the kit were too long and the cap wasn't sealed shut, and it was causing some shorting there. So I replaced the cap thinking that was the problem, and then it didn't get any better. So I decided to replace, got the car towed, had to get the car towed home so I could work on it a little bit easier. So then item number 2, because we could get it to start with starting fluid into the intake, was to, which identified a fuel problem. So I had not ever replaced the fuel filter, and as you can see now it has been replaced. Thankfully I sell those at work, which makes it a little easier to repair. I mean, those are just kind of a pain to do, by the way. I mean, they're not as hard as they should be, but you can kind of see right there is a tiny little, I think it's a 10 or 12 millimeter head bolt that you kind of have to take the whole bracket off to get to it and take that fuel filter out. So we replaced that, primed the fuel pump, and believe it or not, it actually did run. It cranked up and ran. I drove it down the road. I was actually gonna take it on a little bit of a test drive and kind of see maybe how the suspension feels now, because the steering felt pretty good on the straight roads. So I wanted to kind of see how it did now that I had potentially identified the fuel issue. And then it died sitting at a red light while it was just sitting idling. So I had to jump out. I had to throw some ether on the intake. It started back up. I let it run in a gas station parking lot for a little bit, and apparently it was fine again. So rather than risk it and go take it on a mountain drive and get stuck somewhere with no signal, I decided to take it home, and it's been sitting. I haven't tried to crank it up yet today. I would think that it would start, but if not, I've been able to start it with the ether. So I still think there's something going on with the fuel system. I don't know if the pump isn't dead, but I think it might be dying, or it could be something with one of the relays over here. Maybe I've just got, a short in the EFI relay or something like that. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go rent a fuel pressure tester and see if I can find a good spot to maybe hook up to one of these fuel lines somewhere. As long as I've got a rubber hose that I can pull it off. I think that's one of the pressure, either here or there is one of the pressure regulators on this thing. But I'm hoping I can hook that up and kind of get a feel for what the signal's doing like on this. Then while I'm in here, I'll check some of these vacuum lines and make sure there's nothing weird going on there. So that's the current update on the MR2. We do have small update on the Previa over here, which has been honestly a really good car to have so far. I had recently got the AC charged back up in it, and it was blowing cold out of the front and everything, but we had a leak, so I took it back to the shop, and it was a bad Schrader valve. It's a pretty easy fix. But I've been able actually to go to a junkyard. I went to a pick your part in Charlotte, where they happened to have one of these. It was the 91, same color, but it actually still had the original stripes and everything like it's supposed to, which is interesting because, I'm gonna redo all of that on this car. You can almost see where it's starting to come through here. You can kind of see where the line is, where the old paint was. So I'll probably paint that down the road. But anywho, I was able to grab some parts off the salvage car there, and this is probably like my favorite piece. And for anybody that's into Previas, to find a cup holder that is in good shape and not broken is insane. So this is the whole tray. It actually removes from the car pretty easily. And what actually happens is this little plastic snap right here will lose one of the top or the bottom pieces. So it will have the spring effect, but it will not have the latching effect. And as you can see, doing this one-handed, which is just awkward. So you can see right there, that stays shut versus how my current one is and how most people's Previas are, that it just doesn't stay shut. So I'm gonna remove a few screws and I'm gonna put this new cup holder tray in. Some other stuff that I picked up while I was there was I've been having, since I bought this van, I'm thinking there was kids that just destroyed this car at one point, but this vent has been pretty chewed up for a while now. So I was able to pick up, and it's actually part of this larger hoop piece. So I bought this off the parts van, which has got good vents on it, and the rest of the plastic's in good shape. There's one tiny little crack in it somewhere, but I don't even think you'll notice when it's installed. So I'm gonna put that in so that I'll have a good vent. And then that car also happened to be one of the earlier models with the speakers up here in the fuse panel. So I'm literally just gonna pop this fuse panel cover off, add this one in, and even though this van doesn't have the speakers like they did in the early year, the 91, I can easily add them. And I'm trying to figure out, I was gonna just splice them in, but that's just the wrong thing to do. So I'm going to figure out what I want to do, if I want to grab some speakers and just maybe try to use them like woofers, and then maybe I'll have to run an amp, and I'm just needing to do that anyway because I'm wanting to add, there we go. I'm wanting to add speakers to this car as far as subwoofer, so I might do that, just get like a 4-channel, and then I can run 2 speakers on the dashboard that can be powered there, or I could run the door speakers. Which are installed off of the amp, and then run the speakers here off of the head unit. And there's a bunch of different ways I could do that, because I do think I have 6.5s in the door, which would be a bigger speaker to power. But that's kind of a nice little update. So AC is working. The next thing that I'll be doing on this van, on the little stuff, is getting around and finally fixing this vent here. I think something's got it clogged up inside there because right now when I kick the fans on, it just makes a bunch of noise. So I think something probably on the intake side back here has maybe gotten caught in there. But apparently I didn't know this. There's actually an evaporator core. You can almost kind of see it in there. But there is an evap in here. So once I get the air actually moving through this thing, it should actually have cold air. Alrighty, so we have put everything in the Previa that was picked up from the junkyard. You can see the cup holder now works exactly like it should. It actually closes and stays closed. You can see that I have just snapped on the fuse cover box there, and then you can also see that over here I have replaced the vents that were cracked and broken with that little U-shaped piece there. So all those are in. And I am also working on my roof mounted blower here. You can see I have everything apart. Now I'm going to insert a little clip of a video here where you can hear the noise that this thing has been making. And I'm going to power this bad boy on. Here's low speed. Getting some noise. That's the medium. And then the high speed. Is it just everything vibrating? Because there's not that much air coming out of it either. Like on the high speed, there's barely a breeze. It is cold, however, so the evap is doing this job. But there's hardly nothing coming off of it. So what I have done is, I have never worked on one of these before, so I just kind of figured out there's a bunch of screws that hold on a lot of these grills, which you can see are here in the floor. Now, everything plastic involving this roof mounted unit has been breaking pretty badly. So I've got like tiny little pieces of plastic all over the car here, because anything that I'm touching is breaking. Thankfully, it's nothing that's gonna really matter too much. except for maybe some of these grills. I've only really been able to keep, well, I say that and I just broke one in my hand, but these grills are just super easy to break. But what I had noticed is that on this side, there was definitely some lag in the blower blades, the fan blades actually spinning, which told me that something was slipping. And then on the blower on this side, it was not moving at all. So something was jamming it or something. So I figured I would dig a little bit deeper into this. Now here's that evaporator, which again, I was pretty shocked at that this even had. Now, unfortunately, as the van's been running for a little bit to kind of give me some cool air while I'm sitting in here, and unfortunately, this evap right now is not cool. So I'm not sure if we're actually getting Freon back here. So this will probably have to get looked at. So I'm not gonna put all this back together, assuming everything is fixed. But what I've done is, both of these work the same. So right now I just have a couple screws right here and right here holding the bottom tray, which houses the motor and everything here. But the fan blades actually just have a rubber bushing on the inside here where the dowel off of the motor would just normally just slide into. There's actually no teeth. There's no screws. There's nothing that actually holds it into place. Originally it's just held in with rubber resistance, and of course those grommets are completely hard and they've been widened out and they're not gripping anymore. And I doubt that I could just call Toyota or I mean, I could probably get another set of these blades used, but I figured I'm going to try to fix what I've got. So what I have done is I took everything down and made sure there's no, dead bugs or anything in both of those. And I'm gonna give clear RTV a try. So I coated the cylinder. If you kind of look in there closely, so yeah, you can see this one I went a little crazy on, but you can kind of see the RTV inside there. I coated the dowel that comes out of the motor, and then I also coated the plastic, I coated well, it might as well be plastic, the rubber bushing inside of this the center of the blower fan here, the fan blades here, and I'm gonna let that sit for an hour or two and try to see if it's grippy enough that it will actually kind of harden and maybe hold these things in place so that when I flip the switch on, these blades don't try to fall off those dowels or don't spin or whatever. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to get some extra airflow coming out of those, and then I will have to address why my evaporator core is not cold to the touch, because it should definitely be cold. Right now it's not hot or anything, it's just very room temperature. So I have to figure out what's going on with that. But yeah, that is the current state of things. From sitting in here as well, I have noticed that these Previas are awful for how much sun comes in through all of these windows. You just kind of get baked, especially with those massive windshields that these vans have and at the angle that they're at. There's just so much light and sun that comes in there. So as soon as I can, I need to get a window tint on these, and I'm probably even going to tint the windshield with some sort of UV film to at least cut down on that. And then I've had an exhaust leak, which you can hear. I've had a little bit of a buzzing exhaust leak for a while, which is also just completely, when the van sits like this, it's just baking the bottom of the floor pan here. So I'll be very happy. That's probably just an easy fix because it's not a leak from the tailpipe. Tailpipe's actually in good shape. So I just need to figure out what flange is probably missing and get that repaired. And then hopefully I can keep all the heat out the back of the car. I'll get the windows tinted. That will kind of keep the sun out of the car. Get this blower working right. Figure out why this evap core is not cool. And go from there, and hopefully should have, even though it's almost the end of summer, I'll get good air conditioning in this van so we'll be ready for road trips. So as I was wrapping up, kind of just putting things back on here for now so the van could be driven again, I noticed there was a weird sound, and yes, it's raining, but I noticed the sound earlier when it wasn't raining, and it turns out there is a noise coming from the evap core, which sounds like, I'm guessing, the Freon kind of circulating and moving around in there. Let me see if I can try to catch the sound. Yeah, I'll see if that actually comes out, but there's kind of like a swirling, swishing sound. So there's definitely some Freon getting back here. Might not be enough, so we'll figure that out. So yeah, that's it for today. Just a little quick update. When I've got the pressure tester, I will be hooking that up, and I'll probably have a separate video for that. And that way we can kind of diagnose maybe what are fuel issues going on with that car. I'm hoping it's something simple, just because I'm not looking forward to having to replace a fuel pump if I need to, but it has over 200,000 miles on that MR2, and that was with the original engine. Now it's got the supercharged engine, which is probably asking a little bit more of the fuel pump. So I'm hoping that I won't have to replace it, but if I will have to, it is what it is. But yeah, thanks for